Hello and welcome to Hop Along Studio. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to do a card project using one of my favorite paper collections, Road Trip by Wild Whisper Designs. So let's get started. So what I love about this Road Trip paper collection is all the variety of papers. So in this piece here, you can see all the different samples. So it's really great when you're doing road trip layouts for scrapbooking or for art journaling projects about travel. It's a great collection to use because of the lovely graphics that this collection has. So to start this project, I wanted to point out a few of the papers I'll be using today. One of them is this page here. What I love about this collection, it always has this 12 by 12 sheet with all these different images. So in this case, we are going to be using this van image. We're going to be actually cutting out the van, cutting out the compass rose, and also the map for this project. And the back of it is these fun gas station goodies, gummy candy, which we're also going to be using in today's project. This is another one that I really love. I love it because it is also Canadian themed, and it's really hard to get good paper with Canadian themes on it. But what I wanted to point out was this wonderful strip at the bottom here. All of these little, I forget what you call them, these little tags that tell you where you've been on a map. And so basically, I really like these, and I'm going to be actually cutting these out in the project as part of the design. And this is going to be the focal piece for my project, is going to be this compass rose. And then of course we have license plates, and I'm going to be actually cutting out these license plates for this project as well. So I wanted you to be aware of which pieces of paper that I'll be using for this project, just so you can reference them if you end up buying this collection. So for this project, I specifically chose a 5x7 size. I wanted something a little bit bigger that I could kind of work with. And again, I chose that compass rose background because I really love the pattern of this paper. I also wanted to turn this into a photo card, and photo cards is something that I don't do a ton of, but I really want to start doing them more. I do a lot of photography. I've been doing photography and taking courses and practicing for more than 10 years. And so I have all these beautiful pictures from vacation that I never use in my projects. So I'm realizing that I need to scrapbook more, but even with that, I want to start adding these into my art journaling and other areas of my creative practice. So with that, I decided to choose one that I took down when I was visiting the national parks in and around Moab. So I wanted to figure out how I could separate this a bit from the background. So that lovely gas station paper with the white and black, I decided to use it as a frame. So this particular die cut is a postage stamp die cut. It's actually one of these Tim Holtz Alterations Sizzix dies that I've had for a long time. And what's nice about this is, again, it makes this wonderful shape that you can use and use it as a photo mat. So in this case, the postage frame is really 4 inches by 5 inches out to the edges. And so in this case, I chose a photo that was 4.5 by 3.5 inches, so you can lay it on top. So one error I did make that I decided not to correct for this video was I really should have done the die cut a different way, where the gas stations were actually going this direction and not this direction. But because you're going to see so little of it, I decided I was going to run with it. So one thing to think about when you're cutting your own paper, make sure you pay attention to the direction so that you don't make mistakes like I am. And so I just wanted to try to figure out, where do I want this on my card? And I did mention before that I used some of the images on that one piece of paper. And this is what's wonderful about the Wild Whisper designs, is that they have such strong graphical imagery. You don't even have to necessarily buy the ephemera packs and other things. They actually provide you quite a few images that can be just added onto your cards and in your layouts just in the paper pack. And again, these are the little guys that were on that strip of paper at the bottom of the 12 by 12 sheet of paper. So this is the nice thing about this paper, is they include other images so that you can add them as strips, or even can cut them out individually to make them really nice focal points. And of course, I ended up using one of the license plate paper. So before I start arranging all these pieces, the first thing I want to do is add my photo to my piece of paper there, just so that it's going to make trying to figure out how I want to place everything else quite a bit easier. And for this, I would just use my tape runner. It makes this really easy. It's a quick way of getting your photos down. And that just really adds a really nice little frame there. And so generally I would center this, but because I have so many images I want to add, I'm just pushing this a little bit over to the right hand side. And I think to make this a much stronger image, I'm just going to add some layers on top. And so when I actually chose this photo, I did bring that into consideration. I love the idea of the road coming through because this being road trip paper, I really thought that would have a nice look to it. But I don't need to necessarily show all the road for it to be an effective picture. So I'm just going to just butt that up against the side there. I'm also going to, I like adding things in groups and making sure that they kind of look connected to each other. So I'm just going to put the map there, and that's where I wanted these little points to be. Because why not add them to your map? It's a little detail, but I think it adds something to this card. And then with this piece, I'm just going to put it there, and I wanted to put the Manitoba license plate in below as well. And so that's your general layout for your ephemera or your cutout pieces that you've decided to use on this. So I also wanted to add a quote on this. I think it's nice to have like some words or some sort of quote on a lot of my cards. So in this case, I'm using the Adventure Collection by Well Whispered Designs. Life was meant for good friends and great adventures. I was originally planning on this to be a Father's Day card, and then it kind of took on a life of its own. And so the idea was I wanted something that had maybe a little less feminine feel to it, a little bit more masculine, but also not to be really specific to Father's Day or a birthday, but it could be just more of a general card, and that way you can kind of do whatever you want with it. So to stamp this image, I'm just going to use a stamping block and just a random piece of white cardstock. I've started taking any little bits of cardstock that I have left over from other projects, and I'm starting to just include a little collection of like little pieces that I can use for adding sediments and other things to my projects without having to always start on a new piece of paper. I'm actually going to put it on the grid side here. That should make it easier to see if it's straight. Yeah. So you just want to make sure it's nice and straight on your stamping block. And I usually stamp the other way, not this way. But I am being a little bit lazy today, honestly. And just try to center that a little bit. And it's still stamped really well. And that's using a jet black archival ink. And then at this point, I usually just eyeball it. I try to figure out where it kind of sits. And I'm just cutting that off. And I didn't do that very evenly, actually. There's a little bit more on top. I find with a lot of these paper cutters, they work a lot better when you move in a downward motion. And in this case, I'm going to tuck this in underneath the other images. So in this case, I'm not being too picky about it being, it needs to be centered here, but it doesn't necessarily be centered off of this edge. And the other thing I'm going to do is just take a corner punch and just tidy up those corner edges a little bit. This gives it that nice look to it. And this is going to go under something like that. So I'm going to start adhering these pieces to my piece of paper. And something to always think about is you can always use any sort of images that you want on your cards. I tend to think of a photo card as just a photo card, instead of seeing them as an opportunity to add some mixed media elements or even just some paper elements to what I'm already doing. And I purposely made this a very simple card. Sometimes I can get a little carried away with tons of layers and lots of things are going on with my cards. But what I notice is sometimes I will only have 15 minutes in a day to do something creative. Sometimes it's the end of the day when I'm a little bit tired. And so sometimes having these more simple projects, and I know I have mentioned this before that I have started moving towards a few simpler projects just on my channel, especially for those of you who want to start a creative self-care habit, but it can be hard to have an hour to sit down and do a project. That might be something you may not only be able to do on a weekend. So I thought it was really important that I shared with you some more simple ideas, ways that you can have that sense of creativity and have that creative time, but not necessarily taking hours out of your day. Because many of us can fit those 15 minutes into our day and can find ways to build those types of habits if they're small things and it's a little bit more achievable. And just so you know, if you are interested in any of the papers that I'm using here, if you use DT Nadine at checkout, you will get 10% off of your next order. One other thing to consider is until the end of June, I know Wild Whisper on their website is actually having a 30% off sale. So if you are interested in some of these products, the nice thing is right now they are offering some discounts to people who are interested in their paper. And I really like Wild Whisper Designs. I'm not only because I'm part of their design team, but they're just lovely people. And I think buying locally and shopping locally is really important. So that's part of the reason that I like supporting them. And that's part of the reason I'm part of their design team. I really like what they're about. Okay, and now I'm going to use a set of scissors and just trim off those edges. I'm trying to decide. I think I may want to leave a couple of these edges. You know what? I'm cutting all the edges off. I just realized, you know, because this is going to be a card, because basically all you need to do is add this to a card back, and you have your completed card. So it's important to try to keep it to size, just so you can actually get it into the envelope. Before I forget, want to make sure that we add the little markers onto our map. And I'm using ThermoWeb Zots for this just because they work really, really well. So here's our completed project. So I find this is a great way of combining photos and your paper together to make a beautiful card. And what I love about this project is I only really use the paper pack for the road trip to get all of these different images as well as the background paper. And I really love this adventure stamp set. It has some great quotes and some great imagery that I've been using over and over on my projects. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, if you could like it, subscribe to my channel, and let me know what you liked about this video, or if there's something new you would like to learn. I would love to answer your questions and get some inspiration about what you would like to see in my next video. Also, my website, hopalongstudio.com, where I have photo instructions for each of my videos, as well as other ideas on how to build a creative habit in your own life. If you are interested in any of the Wild Whisper Designs products, use DT Nadine at checkout to get 10% off of your next order. I hope that you have a really great week, and I will see you next time.